Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are really getting inside the mind of Bill Gates. We're going to use his own words, to unpack everything from his vision for the world to his take on money and even the one thing that he's truly afraid of.
So let's kick things off with this quote. Being a maniac. To really get the Bill Gates we see today, you've got to look back at the guy who built Microsoft. He talks about his 20s as just this relentless, singular focus on software. He was the guy who worked harder than anyone, and yeah, he built an empire doing it. But what's really interesting is how that focus has totally shifted and broadened out in some really dramatic ways.
So first on the list is his vision for India. This isn't just some new interest for him. It's a really long-standing relationship. And he sees the country as more than just a partner. He actually thinks it's a blueprint for the future of innovation around the world.
So what is it that Bill Gates sees in India? Well, he talks about this huge fundamental shift. Back in the early Microsoft days, India was seen as this amazing source of talent that you'd bring over to the US. But now, he says the whole innovation scene there has just exploded. Invention, problem solving, it's all happening right there. And it's not just for India, it's for everyone.
And this really breaks down why. It's like this unique recipe for innovation. It's not just about having brilliant engineers. It's about how you mix that skill with great management, this incredible entrepreneurial spirit, and maybe most importantly, this desire to create what he calls frugal solutions. Affordable ideas that can actually scale up and be used all over the planet.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly, right? The then versus now. It went from just, hiring the best people from a couple of tech cities to this massive nationwide partnership. And they're not just working on software, they're tackling some of the biggest problems we have. Everything from new vaccines to using AI in healthcare.
Okay, so from global innovation, let's switch gears and talk about his philosophy on wealth, because it's just as unconventional and it really flips a lot of traditional ideas about inheritance and family money on their head.
So, the big question is, if you're super rich, how should you handle inheritance? And for Gates, the answer is, well, it's not just about writing a big check to charity. It's a complete rethink of what family wealth even means, and it gets right to the core of his philosophy.
It all boils down to this one incredible number, less than 1%. That's it. That's the slice of his massive fortune that his kids are actually going to inherit.
And his logic is pretty powerful. He says giving them a massive fortune wouldn't actually be a favor. He's not trying to build a dynasty. He wants to give his kids a chance to create something for themselves, for their own successes to feel significant and not just be dwarfed by his.
And he actually points out that this isn't just him. This whole non-dynastic thing is kind of a hallmark of philanthropy coming out of the tech world. In other industries, people might give away a slice of the profits, but in tech, they tend to be way more aggressive about giving away the actual base capital, the source of the wealth itself.
All right, let's pivot again. We've talked wealth, now let's talk tech. Specifically, what does Bill Gates think about the single biggest revolution happening right now, AI?
He draws this incredible parallel. He says that AI today, it's exactly like software was when he was young. It's this wide open field with just unlimited possibilities. A total landscape of world-changing opportunity right there for the taking.
But here's where his advice for learners today gets really interesting. He's not telling everyone to go become a programmer. No. He says the real sweet spot is becoming a great user of AI in whatever field you love. It doesn't matter what it is. Use these new tools to learn faster and get better at it. He literally calls today a paradise for learning, compared to when he was a kid stuck with encyclopedias in a library.
Okay, so now let's get a little more personal. We've heard the big global vision, we've heard the tech predictions, but what's going on inside Bill's brain? What actually drives him? And, what keeps him up at night?
He's very, very aware of how people see him. And he points to this quote, saying that whenever you see someone with just ridiculous amounts of money, you should probably be a little concerned about their agenda. He gets that. He says the biggest misunderstanding is that people just assume his values and his goals must be totally different or even suspicious because of the money.
So that begs the question, what is his biggest personal fear? What does a guy like Bill Gates actually worry about? Well, it's not spiders or flying or anything like that. It's something way more personal and really central to his entire identity.
And there it is. The thing he's most afraid of is his brain getting less capable. Think about it. The one tool that has fueled his entire life, his incredible ability to learn and process and just understand things, that's the one thing he's terrified of losing. It just disappoints him to even think about it.
But he's not passive about it. He has a whole strategy to combat this fear, and it's something he's been doing his whole life. He basically treats his brain like a muscle. He's always a student. He reads constantly. And he's absolutely brutal with himself, making sure he really truly understands something, not just pretending to.
So finally, what's the legacy here? What's the end game for all this work, all this money, all this learning? Well, it's not about getting his name on a building. It's about making sure certain problems get completely erased from history.
And this quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? I hope people look at the word polio and go, what was that? His ultimate goal isn't to be remembered. It's for a disease to be forgotten. For future generations to literally have to look it up because it just doesn't exist anymore.
And he sees this as a tangible, step-by-step process, right? We did it with smallpox back in 1980. That was the first. Now we're on the very edge of doing the same thing with polio, maybe even by 2029. And once that's done, he thinks that victory gives us the blueprint and the momentum to then take on the next big ones, like malaria and measles.
And that brings us to the end with this final question. I mean, Bill Gates is totally laser-focused on the problems he thinks he can help solve. So that leaves a pretty powerful question for the rest of us, doesn't it? What problem will your generation solve so completely that one day people will have to ask, what was that?